Nowadays, regardless of the work you do, you probably rely on a number of different technologies. Should any of those technologies get too complex or just up and fail on you, you need someone to help support. Today, I'm going to talk to you about managed IT services, and specifically what you, the small business owner, needs to be aware of when bringing in a company to tend to your business's technology needs. Now, some businesses can afford to bring on an entire IT department. But if you run a small or medium-sized business, bringing aboard a full IT staff may not be feasible. You could potentially hire an IT engineer, but that one person likely doesn't have the bandwidth to handle much more than helping to put out fires as they ignite. Long-term planning, maintenance, and strategy are likely going to be too much for that lone IT warrior. Believe me, I've been that guy. Now, you might have even come to the conclusion that one IT staffer doesn't really cut it, and you plan on handling things yourself, which is great until you realize you're not any sort of Bill Gates after all. Setting up staff email addresses is taking what precious little time you have from, actually running your business. Well, since neither of those are ideal, what does that leave? Well, the good news is there's a solution out there that many others in the SMB space have turned to with fantastic results: managed IT services. So what does that mean exactly? Great question. Now, whether you currently or previously have worked with an MSP or managed IT services provider, I'm going to go through what is involved with that, and from there you should be armed with plenty of info to decide if managed IT services are a good fit for you and your business. In the simplest of terms, managed IT services involve an agreement with an MSP to provide your organization with ongoing IT support for a flat monthly fee. That fee will vary depending on your organization's needs, and for a more in-depth look at MSP pricing, check out our video discussing that very topic. When your organization hires an MSP, instead of having an internal IT department, that MSP essentially becomes your IT department. You shouldn't think of an MSP as an outside vendor, but rather an extension of your business and staff. They're now your CIO, IT manager, and all levels of IT support in between. Your MSP is positioned to help you ensure your technology is equipped to support your business's needs. Via an MSP, small and medium businesses now have access to senior level IT staff that may not have been a feasible choice otherwise. Your business will receive a combination of both remote and on-site support. And with the expansion of remote work, an MSP is extremely well positioned to support your staff regardless of geography. The vast majority of IT requests and support issues, we found, can be handled remotely. This offers MSP clients a speedy resolution about every 4 out of 5 times. The remaining issues get a tech dispatched to a client's location to be resolved, along with any other tasks that are best served in person. It's that level of personalized service a reputable MSP will provide. We like to provide a primary resource to each client account, and with the rest of our team on hand to back them up. In the event a primary technician is unavailable, unlike when a company has a lone IT person, an MSP has additional staff available to handle the load. And your MSP always has a pair of eyes on your IT infrastructure, ideally with a number of automated processes and alerts. This way, the most important maintenance tasks are being handled automatically, and the MSP is almost immediately alerted if something looks awry. There are a few ways your MSP keeps tabs on all of this without the need to physically be where you conduct your business. And that's especially helpful in the hybrid work environments of today. And the primary means of doing so is via a remote monitoring and management, also called an RMM tool. RMM is effectively what we as an MSP use to keep tabs on your environment 24/7. This set of tools and processes is what we'll use to keep everything up to date, as well as alerting us when something may not be doing so well. Yes, this will be our first line of defense against cyber attacks, and will also serve quite useful in letting us know when any of your systems is experiencing an issue or is just in need of some routine maintenance. Next, we'll deploy a suite of tools including antivirus, email protection, firewalls, web filtering, And this is part of what we call our endpoint protection. These, as well as other tools, ensure that threats are detected and neutralized before they can cause serious damage. This is the foundation of the multi-layered security framework we deploy today to protect your business from the rapidly evolving new cyber threats out there. Finally, one of the biggest benefits of working with an MSP is staff redundancy. You get access to a qualified technician to assist you with your IT needs and the backing of a full IT company that ensures you'll always be able to receive that support when you need it. In-house staff will inevitably have some valid reason as to why they may be unavailable, but an MSP will have backup technicians and full documentation at the ready for when issues arise. When your primary resource is not able to immediately hop on and help, you can rest assured knowing you're covered. So, with remote monitoring and management tools, your endpoint protection suite, and a team of engineers available to tend to your needs at any time, those are the foundations an MSP lays to take care of your essential IT needs. This is the second installment in a series I like to call Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Managed IT. Now that you've got a basic understanding of what managed IT services are and how an MSP delivers those services, you're probably wondering what's next. It's cool, I can totally see those wheels turning up there. You've already got several ideas in mind as to how something like this could work for you. Well, hold those thoughts and I'll give you some more ideas as to how you can effectively implement managed IT for your organization. MSPs will offer a number of options tailored to your specific business. Often, your MSP will be your sole source of IT support, while in other cases, they will assist your internal IT team in handling a lot of the tasks that team simply neither has the time for nor possibly the expertise. This is typically referred to as co-managed IT, where both internal IT and MSP teams share duties to support IT for an organization. Plenty to choose from in either scenario, and your MSP will work with you to draw out an agreement to best satisfy your IT requirements. The most common scenario for small to mid-sized businesses has the MSP acting as the primary means of IT support. You don't have any dedicated IT staff, although it sure comes in handy to have at least one tech-savvy point person for relaying requests. It's also great when the point person can help power something off and on and knows where things like cables and accessories are stored. Contract with your MSP will indicate which services they provide and set the foundation for your relationship. Now, without getting too much into the weeds about everything an MSP contract includes, I'll give you 3 of the key things you should expect. Number 1, you'll get real technical expertise that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. An MSP is typically founded around an exceptional ability to work with technology. An MSP staff will have the right attitude of wanting to help their customers make the absolute best use of their tech. They'll also have the extensive experience necessary to make that happen and be able to address your questions while providing you with the top-notch service you deserve. An MSP staff will have a varied degree of skills, and the best part is, you get access to all levels of IT help as you need it. Look, anyone who's made the cut to work in IT will be able to solve most basic issues, such as troubleshooting connectivity, account issues like password resets, and common device or software installation. Those are typically referred to as level 1 support. If there's a problem that's more difficult to resolve and requires a more advanced set of skills, well, those can be considered level 2 or 3 issues. Think along the lines of security, advanced networking, and integrations, or other complex systems needs. For the most part, MSPs will bring on level 2 or better technical staff. While still being able to handle the simple things, a higher level IT engineer will be able to address items more efficiently and bring them to resolution that much faster. Number 2, the service will be customized just for you. Sure, your MSP agreement is a legally binding document. The right MSP will come up with a plan to deliver their services in a way that works best for you, the customer. We found that by assigning a primary engineer to each client, we're able to provide a familiarity and level of understanding that you can't get from a rotating team of techs coming in and out of your environment. The primary resource gets to know you and your business and your staff, get your processes and details thoroughly documented, and sees to it that your needs are addressed and resolved in a timely manner. A client can expect both in-person and remote support from their primary resource, allowing this individual to become really familiar with their environment, processes, and support needs. This engineer builds a relationship with their clients and makes sure the rest of the staff has documentation and support necessary to service the client when they're unavailable. And the third thing you can expect from an MSP is access to 24/7 support. Now, we can all agree that IT emergencies don't always happen during regular business hours. If Murphy's Law tells us anything, these things are far more likely to take place while you're dead asleep in the middle of the night. I know it's happened to me. A lot of these things can wait until the start of the next business day, but many have an impact that needs to be addressed immediately before any serious damage can be done. Your MSP will be available to address your IT emergency regardless of day or time. Whether it's an on-call staff engineer or an outsourced emergency network operations center or NOC, like we employ at STG, you're never left out in the cold when the unexpected strikes. The one thing to keep in mind that not all agreements include 24/7 support. They may be charged as a separate line item. If you're unsure, you can always check with the tech with whom you're speaking, and they'll advise of what will be involved in getting that off-hours emergency support. At that point, you can decide whether it'll be worthwhile in getting it addressed immediately, or if it can wait until regular business hours. All of these factors allow your MSP to handle IT requirements from simple administration to unique implementations and issues. Now, if you want something other than having them handle your company's IT entirely, you've got other options. Maybe you just want remote support for when issues arise. This is a popular one lately with staff being more spread out or working from home. There are also options where you can just have your devices monitored and kept up to date. These options can lower your monthly recurring costs, but are not flat rate, and you will incur additional charges if and when you need that hands-on support. Now, even if you do have in-house IT support, there are still a number of ways to utilize a managed service provider to help fill in the gaps in areas your internal team can delegate out. For one, an MSP can provide some temporary IT support via supplemental staffing services. We've helped a number of clients who were transitioning and required some regular ongoing assistance in the form of an on-site IT presence. Organizations change, people leave, but the rest of your staff will still need to be supported, and your IT partner is there to help. There are certain things you just can't do remotely, and a pair of qualified tech-savvy hands are necessary. Whether it's just for a few days, weeks, or months, whatever you need, an MSP can fill your IT staffing needs until your internal team is in place. Another option is to go with what is typically referred to as co-managed IT, where your internal IT department contracts an MSP to handle specific aspects of the environment. It's simply not possible for a single IT staffer or small IT team to be everywhere at all times. And no matter how great they are at their jobs, there are likely areas where an MSP's experience and skills will prove useful. Businesses can utilize this by having an MSP provide areas of expertise that they don't currently have with their in-house teams, and leverage this relationship to provide a more comprehensive set of services and support to their staff. Perhaps your internal team is great at providing things like desktop computer support. They're not quite as adept as tuning your Wi-Fi and network speeds so that all the office gets great coverage. Well, in a case like this, you can turn to your MSP's networking team to fill in both the knowledge and Wi-Fi coverage gaps. And speaking of networking expertise, some companies turn to MSPs to just monitor their networks and provide alerting and assistance in getting things back up and running should issues arise. Some of our clients count on us for preparing their computers for new hires or when existing staff need theirs refreshed, as well as ongoing monitoring, security, hardware support, and things like that. There are many possibilities when it comes to co-managed IT, and the majority of internal IT staff and managers can really benefit from the assistance these types of arrangements provide. So these are just a few ways an MSP can really assist in helping you manage your IT infrastructure and let you get back to growing your business. We're now in part 3 of the series I call Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Managed IT. Today, in a somewhat related topic, I I'd like to get into some of the pluses and minuses of managed IT services. Not surprisingly, I'm a big believer in the benefits of utilizing an IT managed services provider. As someone who lives and breathes this stuff daily, I find the best way for a business to have a robust and scalable technology infrastructure is to outsource some part of it, if not all, of that work to a trusted partner. I could go on ad nauseum about why this is a great idea, but I've got 4 big reasons why, and I'll list them here now. Number 1, you have a 24/7 team dedicated to supporting your IT needs. Now, without being overly repetitive, your businesses need support. Having a partner capable of providing it whenever you need it, that's a pretty major benefit if you ask me. Internal staff goes on vacation. They get sick and they have other commitments that will otherwise render them unavailable. Having an agreement with an MSP alleviates those gaps in coverage. MSPs leverage a number of skilled technical staff members with exposure to numerous technologies. Along with the people, your IT provider should maintain detailed records on all aspects of your technology infrastructure, including your staff, devices, processes, software, and the platforms you use. In the event one of the individuals who typically help you out isn't readily available, one of their colleagues will be at the ready to take care of any issues that may arise. Number 2, you'll be working with some real IT experts. As someone who runs an MSP, you're not going to get far unless you really are a master of your craft. You've got to hire and regularly train staff with already a great deal of technical knowledge. Also keep in mind, an MSP gains a lot of expertise by working with a number of clients across many different industries. This sort of expertise is not something a sole engineer or even a small IT team can pick up from a single environment. That same expertise can be leveraged to help your business in multiple ways. You can certainly use this to help you handle your day-to-day IT needs. Where you can really benefit is to utilize that knowledge to help streamline business processes, increase stability, and keep your environment secure. You'll also be gaining the sort of expertise and wisdom to help you as technology and your business needs evolve. Your MSP can certainly help you with new IT projects as your needs dictate. Most importantly, you have a trusted partner who really gets to know you and your business. You gain an ally in helping you achieve greater business efficiency through the use of technology. With the expertise your MSP provides, you really do gain an extra advantage in growing your business. Number 3, the most cost-effective way to get IT talent. Not only are you getting some of the best possible IT expertise available, you'll be getting it at a far better, more predictable cost than any of the other common ways of receiving IT support. Well, short of doing nothing and scrambling to find someone to fix things when they break, and even then you've got to factor in the lost productivity. I could go on and on why that's a horrible idea, but hey, people will learn that one way or another. I've done an entire video on MSP pricing as well as having typical pricing options listed on our website. And I'll get more into a cost analysis, managed IT services versus other options in a later installment in this series. But for what you'll pay for a typical MSP contract, you couldn't staff a single capable help desk tech. Mid and senior level staff are going to run substantially more as well than if you go with an outsourced provider. Let's also factor in that you're not paying taxes, training, and benefits to your outsourced techs while still getting up to the most senior level of staff to deal with the entire range of IT requirements. Number 4, hiring an MSP is far more flexible than hiring in-house. Hiring in-house certainly lacks the adaptable nature of outsourced IT. You'll likely have HR and other requirements when hiring internally. You'll also need to consider their fit in your organization and all the soft costs of bringing this individual to your team. Not to mention, finding this person will likely have some costs both in terms of time on your end and other advertising and recruiting expenses. You also need to consider the ramifications of hiring someone and the labor laws surrounding their employment if things just don't work out. With an MSP, your contract is laid out from the start, so you always know what to expect, and the associated costs. If you need additional services or support, those will be scalable to fit your needs. Now, as I've mentioned on several occasions, working with an MSP is not an ideal fit for every organization. Some organizations just aren't a terrific fit for one another in all industries, and managed IT services are certainly no exception. While I'm definitely of the belief almost any business can achieve great benefits working with an outsourced IT company for many of the reasons I previously highlighted, here are 3 drawbacks that can potentially come up when you work with an MSP. Number 1, you don't always have that on-site, hands-on IT support. When you outsource your IT, you do give up having that IT person standing by at your office, ready for whenever an IT issue arises. Yes, that person can have a lot of familiarity with your systems and staff as well. Now, that's not to say your MSP won't have as firm a grasp on your IT needs as an in-house person, but they won't be there until a need arises. This can be a bit of a culture shock initially to staff used to having that instant on-site assistance when they need it. The good news is most problems can be resolved remotely and quickly. And should you require that on-site assistance, your MSP will be there to provide it as quickly as necessary. Besides, who really wants to see their IT staff every day? In my corporate days, they'd stuff us way in the back of the office, far away from you normies. If businesses actually wanted to see their IT people, they sure have a funny way of showing it. But rest assured, you'll still get that in-person assistance from an MSP. It just won't be there every day. Number 2, you may need to overhaul some of your equipment. Now, many SMBs bring aboard an MSP to get their technology running smoothly. This often presents a challenge when a prior provider did not work to keep things up to date as well as they could have, or even worse, the company's priorities didn't include updating their technology. To provide the best possible service, your managed IT company is going to need equipment that's up to the task. Your MSP certainly wants to bring everything as current as possible. This is the real win-win both your organization and your technology provider can enjoy. The more efficient equipment is far better maintained going forward, and your staff can do their best work without their technology holding them back. If this isn't something your company is going to value nor able to commit to, hiring an MSP may not be the best choice. You certainly can, but it wouldn't necessarily give you the results you're looking for. Older, outdated equipment will take longer to support and still possibly not yield the results you're hoping for. Meanwhile, you're still dealing with issues that can only ultimately be resolved by upgrading. So in essence, bringing aboard an MSP without being dedicated to having up-to-date equipment and solutions will be a problem for both your company and the provider you hire. And number 3, MSPs tend to work best for specific sizes of companies. The ideal client for the fully managed, entirely outsourced IT services MSPs provide range from around starting at 10 staff all the way up to maybe 200. For full transparency, particularly if you're on the smaller side, unless you're really willing to adapt to the standardized way an MSP will implement your best-in-class solutions for your team, it's not necessarily an ideal fit. This is the range we found will typically benefit from the services an MSP provides, but not quite ready for a full-on internal IT team. Now, just because you fall outside this range, don't fret. You could still benefit from managed IT. As I'd mentioned in the prior video, if you're a larger business, you could definitely find ways to leverage an MSP in a co-managed IT arrangement. Or if you're smaller, growing, or just highly tech dependent, working with an MSP can help you manage your business without having to worry about the technology holding you back. Well, so that about sums up what benefits and potential pitfalls you should consider when you're thinking about working with an MSP. Do the benefits seem as though they'll be a positive impact for your business, or do some of the drawbacks seem to speak to you directly? It's fine if you're still on the fence somewhere in between. I'm not sure if this is for me, or let's do this. Where do I sign up? Today we're going to get into some of the factors to help you decide managed IT is right for you. And I totally get that everyone's business is unique, and there really are no one-size-fits-all solutions in life, and technology management is certainly no exception. I will be discussing some of the general criteria and types of businesses to help guide you in this decision-making process. Ultimately, I'd like to help you determine if your company would be able to see great benefits from employing the services of an MSP. So, while there are many scenarios where an MSP can certainly help, after nearly 30 or so years of doing this, here's who can benefit most, in my opinion. Best fit number one are SMBs. Yep, those small and medium businesses really can take their technology to the next level by leveraging a solid technology provider. We're talking generally in the 10 to up to 200 staff range, give or take. Look, sometimes even senior executives can get stuck bogged down in technology responsibilities in these organizations, and that's definitely not the best use of their time nor skill sets. It could work for a while, but eventually this can turn into a bottleneck, stunting your business growth. While many try and hire a lone in-house tech to handle some of these needs, that individual can sometimes come up short, and hiring an entire team can be complex, time-consuming, and cost-prohibitive. By bringing an MSP into the fold, those SMBs get nearly all the benefits of an in-house tech, along with the redundancy, proven systems, and senior-level expertise needed to adeptly deal with all their technology needs. Best fit number two. You have a large staff, but generally a smaller number of computer users. So a lot of MSPs do per-user contracts, and that applies to the number of users that your MSP has to support. So if any number of your staff do not require the use of a computer, nor do they need support, then they wouldn't be subject to those charges. And essentially, if you have a relatively small office staff, but still have large staff overall, if you have a couple hundred or more, managed IT services can still be a good solution for you. There are a number of industries that can fall into this sort of criteria. Think of restaurants and hospitality, construction, transportation, manufacturing. That's just to name a few. And best fit number three, businesses in regulated industries. One of the benefits we've previously discussed in working with an MSP was the extensive expertise gained in working with clients across multiple industries. Now, one of the areas of expertise a managed service provider accumulates comes with working with companies in similar industries. Now, by working with some specific niches, providers will become highly knowledgeable with a number of the specific regulations they must abide by and the applications used in doing so. For example, as we serve a number of clients in the medical space, we've become very knowledgeable in regards to HIPAA compliance, as well as formed a partnership with a service that ensures all those regulations are met, even the ones not related to IT. Finance has similar regulatory needs, and as an MSP with specialty in that space as well, we can ensure all our clients receive the level of VIP support and expertise required to support their business goals. Look, skilled IT engineers are always in high demand, and finding ones with some of the industry-specific knowledge some of these industries need is particularly difficult. An MSP can be your all-in-one solution, regardless of those complex requirements. Now, we've delved into this next category slightly before, but let's talk about candidates that may not be proper fits for managed services. While managed IT can be a great fit for a wide range of companies across almost all industries, there are just some that aren't a great fit, and I'll get into three in particular right now. Bad fit number one, companies that are either too big or too small. Now, while the number of staff you employ isn't the only thing to keep in mind, particularly smaller large companies may not be in a position to benefit most from outsourced IT. When you're an army of one or just a few, the added recurring expense may not yet be warranted. Conversely, when you start hitting multiple triple-digit staff sizes, it may be time to consider some in-house IT staff, possibly with a provider supplementing that staff with co-managed IT services. This way you get the benefit of the near instant response from your staff and the expertise, redundancy, and maintenance an MSP can offer. Poor fit number 2, companies who tend to rely on outdated equipment. Look, I get having an attachment to that old comfortable pair of jeans you're never quite sure will make it through the next wash. Technology is not like an old pair of jeans. You can't wait until it disintegrates before you replace it. Even if you think you don't need the upgrades to your hardware and software that the vendors are telling you that you need to maintain support, put yourself right behind the 8 ball when you delay. Now, whether you believe you need those upgrades or not, an MSP will not be willing to put their name and reputation at risk by trying to support technologies that are essentially past their expiration date. Not only does it make the MSP's job much harder, it's setting both of you up to fail, and that's not in anyone's best interest. Poor fit number 3. There's companies that just aren't very reliant on information technology. Now, seeing as how I've dedicated my life to helping individuals and businesses improve their technology, not everyone happens to be on that same page. Businesses utilize technology in even the most limited cases. Probably keep digital records for accounting and documentation. You likely send email and promote on social media. Even the smallest businesses are fairly tech reliant these days. If you're just getting your business underway, there may not be enough IT to warrant bringing on a full-fledged MSP to service you. It might be worth establishing a relationship with a local computer repair business, possibly one that also offers managed services for when you grow to the point you'll actually need that level of support. So, once you've identified that you're a potential fit to utilize a managed IT service provider, you need to determine what options you have with an MSP and how they best work for your business. Now, in making these determinations, you should consider how the service is delivered, what the service includes, and then, of course, what the service is going to cost. Here, we'll quickly break down 3 common ways of handling your IT needs and how these primary considerations are addressed in each one. Option number 1, going fully outsourced managed IT services. In this option, your needs are completely serviced by the MSP you establish a relationship with. This MSP has multiple staff capable of dealing with the wide range of technology requirements your business has. They have their tools and staff available to you 24/7 to provide that support whenever duty calls. Your MSP has a high level of expertise with your environment and the environments of many other clients, so you can feel confident they'll be able to address any issues that may arise. Do keep in mind that since the MSP is not present at your site until it's necessary, the majority of your support will be handled remotely. That's not to say an MSP will not show up either for regularly scheduled visits or when an emergency calls for it. Managed IT is likely your most cost-effective option, as you get the benefits of a highly skilled IT staff at what's typically less than the cost of a single qualified entry-level technician. You need to bring on more senior level technical staff and a technical manager to oversee them to meet the levels of service and knowledge an outsourced IT provider would give you. This would by far exceed an MSP's costs, and unless you really need immediate in-person support at all times and are willing to pay a premium for it, an MSP is a great alternative. Option 2, co-managed IT. With co-managed IT, your MSP only handles partial support of your technology and supports your internal IT team. While there are any number of options here dependent on the number of staff you'd employ internally and their individual strengths, you can pass along any number of duties off to your MSP. In a typical scenario, the MSP handles a lot of the day-to-day monitoring, updating, and other repetitive tasks, and also provides hand-on support of the initiatives the internal team defines. They can also leverage the MSP to provide support when the internal team is otherwise unavailable either during off hours or when they have other commitments. While co-managed services will incur additional costs versus just hiring in-house support alone, you really do get the benefit of the additional knowledge and redundancy the service provider brings, considering you'll still receive that additional know-how for less than the cost of hiring additional IT managers and engineers internally. It's a win-win across the board. And option 3, hiring a full internal IT support team. I guess the title says it all. You're bringing aboard a team to internally handle all your IT support needs. Sure, you may outsource certain projects, but the day-to-day is handled by this team you've hired. If you've only got a single IT person, well, as they go, so does your IT support. It doesn't exactly pass the old school bus test. You know, what would happen to supporting your IT environment if this person got hit by a school bus? And that's not even taking into account other time off like sick days, holidays, and other personal commitments. If you have multiple staff, that'll mitigate some of the availability issues, but then someone will have to manage the staff to ensure that continual coverage. So in terms of costs, now to get the sort of service an MSP will provide, you'll need an IT manager and at least 2 staff engineers that have at least a fairly high level of technical knowledge. You'll need to keep their training up to date, not to mention the costs of benefits and other employment expenses you can expect. In terms of overall costs, hiring a fully staffed internal IT team is going to be the most expensive of the 3 options. So hopefully this information will have at least given you some insight as to whether or not managed IT might be a good fit for your business. You might also have a number of other questions regarding how to best utilize these services in your organization. Well, I've already done a video about managed IT services cost. Now, if you've made it this far, you've probably asked yourself, probably on more than one occasion, well, Stan, this is perfectly well and good. But let's get down to brass tacks here. What's this going to run me? Well, when it comes to technology services pricing, the answers and solutions can be all over the map. Most often you get the dreaded old, contact us for a quote. And you know what happens from there. You get drawn into a long sales cycle with a lot of emails, phone calls, and a whole bunch of distractions you're probably hoping to avoid. Well, not with this guy. There's a pricing page on our website along with a calculator. Figure out how big your staff is, punch it in, and voila, you have a pretty accurate depiction as to what you'll pay. Now, that's not to say those figures are etched in stone. Those are just the most general ways in which clients utilize our services. Some are comfortable with our entry-level plans, some want a few features in the higher tiers, and can add those a la carte. There are a number of variables out there depending on your specific needs that can adjust the price. So what I'd like to get into now are the 4 most common MSP pricing options and some of the considerations involved. Number 1, per user. Well, this one's fairly self-explanatory. Pay by the number of users for which you require support. It's the most straightforward for both client and provider to track and is easiest to scale up or down as your needs change. This is the model we primarily use at STG, but there are certainly other options. Number 2, per device. So instead of paying by the numbers of users in your organization, you pay by the number of devices. Again, pretty much what the name implies. So while this can make sense for some organizations, say you've got a high number of staff but a smaller number of devices, it becomes a little more challenging to stay on top of. Type and complexity of devices can affect the pricing as well. Like for example, servers are going to typically incur higher monthly recurring costs than a desktop or laptop computer. This sort of model tends to work particularly well for co-managed scenarios where the provider is meant to handle various support duties limited to computers under their management. However, it sometimes makes sense to mix it up a bit, and that gets us to our next option. And number 3, custom pricing. I touched a bit upon this earlier, And as we understand that every business has unique needs. So while budget isn't always the main consideration, your business may prioritize certain support needs over others. While you may not be as concerned about the advanced security offerings in some of the highest pricing tiers we can offer, you might want that included 24/7 support or some additional hardware as a service or something else available in those higher tiers. We and most other MSPs will be able to craft a custom solution around your needs and budgets. After all, we're in the business of supporting you, and we'll always be willing to do so in a way that best meets your needs to the best of our abilities. Number 4, remote only. Now, admittedly, we haven't had a client looking for only remote support in quite a while. What can I say? I guess us IT guys are just a bit too charming and can't wait to see our smiling faces. But while in reality, a majority of the issues can be solved remotely, the really difficult cases will require an on-site presence. So while customers can save some of their recurring costs by going with a strictly remote option, many opt out. When there is a problem requiring someone to be there, clients want to know someone will be at the ready to resolve their more advanced troubles and do so without incurring additional fees. Is that worth a 20% reduction in fees? I guess that's for you to decide. But what does all this mean to the bottom line? Now that you know how an MSP will probably charge, let's talk dollars and cents. Since we at STG mostly charge by the users, like many of our peers, we'll use that as the basis here today. This should give you an overall sense of what you can expect with regard to costs. Try to keep this as straightforward as possible, but there are 3 key elements to consider. Number 1, the assessment. Now, you probably already have a fairly strong understanding of your IT environment, your number of users, and areas you might have been neglecting that need attention. Your provider is going to confirm all of this by using a combination of software, discovery tools, and general human analysis of your environment. Based on the findings, your MSP will be able to come up with a succinct proposal. Depending on the size, complexity, number of sites, and some other elements, this assessment can either be provided at no charge or typically more in the ballpark of $500 to $1,000 per location. Number 2 is going to be any hardware remediation. You wouldn't hire a mechanic on call if you were driving an old clunker, and you likely aren't hiring an MSP to tend to your dilapidated technology. However, if after your assessment, a number of devices seem to be out of date, hampering your productivity, and likely to cause future issues, your MSP will be remiss if they don't want you to remediate all of this as part of your onboarding. Look at it this way. If you have a firewall and Wi-Fi from the cable or telco, that's got to go. If your computers are slow, out of warranty, non-business class devices, then you should probably upgrade there as well. It'll make you more efficient and make your staff more productive. I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it here now. The biggest factor to consider is the downtime you might face by using older, out-of-warranty hardware. Being stuck with a down computer or device, lacking in vendor support, leaves you no choice but to purchase a replacement on the fly, and no one wants to be left scrambling in that position. So in terms of rough costs, a solid, highly secure next-generation firewall and Wi-Fi setup can typically run anywhere in the $1,500 to $4,500 range depending on your needs. Figure solid business class PCs will be in the $800 ballpark these days. For the completed assessment, this should all be a simple calculation. And number 3 are going to be your monthly charges. So while any initial charges for your assessment and hardware upgrades are one-time costs, the ongoing support and maintenance your MSP provides will be covered by your ongoing recurring charges. This will include all the preventive maintenance, support, and other services included in your agreement. Help desk, on-site support when needed, and SaaS management, things like Office 365, are all included. Even the most basic plans will include some form of monitored security and web filtering. This covers blocking of known and suspected threats, as well as giving you the flexibility to keep your staff off sites you may want to block that aren't necessary for business purposes. Different providers will have their rates based on their region and the level of service provided. our listed plans range from $125 to $250 per user. In case you missed it, you can get more in-depth descriptions of those plans in this video right here. There are add-ons like hardware as a service or HaaS that will include your necessary equipment that can be factored into the monthly charges. This is effectively equipment leasing that is included in your MSP monthly bill, ensuring you consistently have up-to-date equipment that your MSP will swap out for you as it ages or in the event of any issues. Now, for everyone's convenience, our contracts are set to auto-debit via ACH on the first of every month. So with that, let's go into some examples of what MSP pricing might look like. I mean, honestly, from here, the math is fairly simple. Pick the level of service you need, multiply that by the number of staff you have who require support, and then you have your monthly recurring costs. If hardware upgrades are called for, factor in the purchase and setup of those upgrades as a one-time cost at start. One of the many benefits of managed IT services is the cost predictability. You know what you're paying up front to keep your environment maintained, backed up, and secure. If no major projects or changes come up, that's going to be your monthly spend. Now, what do I mean by major projects? Well, think about it this way. Adding one new staff member, well, we take care of that. Adding several new staff members in a given month, well, we'll take care of that too. But keep in mind that those new staff will add to your recurring costs, but bringing them on board won't incur a project charge. If the new staff require new hardware, you should probably budget for that as well. But you're going to open a new office requiring a whole new infrastructure, firewall, Wi-Fi, and 20 new staff members. Well, yeah, for that we would charge a project fee. Anything well outside the scope of general user support and maintenance, just think of those, that they'll likely be separate billable items. Now, these scenarios more or less cover what you can expect in terms of billing from an MSP. There are a pair of other items to keep in mind with typical MSP billing. When you add users, the charges typically don't take effect until your next monthly billable cycle. The opposite is true when you subtract users. The lowered amounts won't kick in until the next cycle either. The second thing to keep in mind is that not all plans include 24/7 emergency support. You would have access to that support, it just may be a separately billable item depending on your agreement. Our top level plans do include 24/7 support with a network operations center and help desk on duty around the clock. The other support tiers do have access to that service, but separate charges will apply. So with all these items in mind, I think you get a pretty good idea as to what your MSP contract is going to cost you. So we're now up to section 6 of the Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Managed Services series. Today, I'm going to get into what your business can expect once you've signed your contract and are ready to begin working with your MSP. But first, I'd like to get a little into several things to look for when you select your managed IT provider. Obviously, you want to select the best possible provider to work with, who's not only capable of doing the job, but is also a fit with you and your organization. You want those good vibes working with a company that is up to the tasks and their corporate culture is a fit with yours. So with that in mind, I've got 4 characteristics you should keep in mind when making your selection. Number 1, their staff has the technical skills to pay the bills. Look, you probably have a number of technical issues that need to be looked after. Most are going to be relatively common problems with simple solutions. Although it's the big issues that require senior technicians to resolve them, so you should be aware of the levels of expertise your provider has on hand. We've gone into the levels of technical expertise the various staff of an MSP typically has, and between them all, your bases are generally covered. What you really should consider when hiring your technology provider is if they are a technology-focused organization or one more focused on growth. I get wanting more business, of course. But I started out as a technician and haven't really veered too far from those roots. My goal is to innovate on the delivery of technical excellence to my clients first. All our staff are tech savvy and thrive in the common goal of helping our clients leverage technology to reach their objectives. We're a highly technically competent group. When you have a technical issue, any one of us will help guide you through it. Number 2, you're able to convert nerd speak into English. But when you raise an issue with your provider, sometimes you just want to be heard, right? We all do. By submitting a request with your MSP, you should get an acknowledgement, at least via an automated reply from their help desk system. This way, you know the request has been received and someone should be working on it shortly. At least that's the way our system works. When you do get a response from a technician, usually not too far after the automated reply, it shouldn't be a bunch of tech gibberish that you can't understand. The technician should be able to convert that nerd speak and respond in a way where you understand the problem, their proposed solution, and can therefore make an informed decision on what to do next. Number 3, your MSP is here to ensure your satisfaction. Besides being able to keep you in the loop, your MSP should be able to quickly and effectively resolve your issues. Believe me, that goes a long way towards keeping you, the client, happy. Arguably, the biggest factor in customer satisfaction is fast response time. While service loads vary, as does resolution time, I'm very proud of our responsiveness. I can't speak for all MSPs, but the majority of the service requests we get are responded to immediately by the ticketing system, assigned to a technician within an hour, and resolved within 2. Obviously, this is going to change depending upon the complexity of the request, other factors, such as if additional equipment will be required and technician workload. Now, whether it's a straightforward issue or one that's a bit more involved, regular updates and activity will be relayed to the clients in real time. And number 4, that technology bar is constantly being raised. Keeping the ship afloat is certainly job number 1 for your tech provider, but being tech-driven, they can help you grow in any number of ways. We've touched on this previously, but your MSP will have a lot of experience with clients in your industry and many industries outside of that. By leveraging this knowledge, training, and networking with others in the field, your MSP will help you gain other benefits and competitive advantages. This know-how will not only keep your current environment in tip-top shape, but as your needs evolve, you'll have a partner to help you achieve whatever goals you can set. Now, however, before your MSP can go about maintaining and continually evolving your IT, they're going to need to assess what you've already got in place. This assessment can either take place at your office, if you even have one these days, or done virtually, whatever your preference. During the initial gathering phase of this assessment, a general overview of your environment will be collected, including things such as, number 1, hardware, any hardware you use, such as your computers and network equipment, the software systems you're currently using, including locally installed applications, as well as your cloud solutions, and also gaining an accurate staff headcount to know who exactly will be requiring their support. The assessment will also get an idea of what sort of security you have in place and any shortcomings that should be addressed in that regard. While this isn't a full vulnerability scan in most cases, this will give your provider a good baseline of where your current risks are, and a plan to close those gaps will start to form. Then most MSPs will have a general questionnaire onboarding checklist they'll work with you to get filled out. To get an even more in-depth overview of your environment, the questionnaire will seek specific details needed to provide support. Things along the lines of your internet service, the account information, contact information, any servers or special systems you're running, access to some critical systems, along with any details necessary for your MSP to properly take care of you. Once this part is done, your MSP will be ready to handle all of your IT needs, and they'll be able to give you an accurate quote for their services. Now, once the assessment's complete, it's finally time to get you that contract. This contract will clearly define the roles and responsibilities your MSP provides and will have certain requirements of you as well. Now, these requirements are primarily centered around the hardware and software you use and are put in place to enable the best possible service your managed IT company can provide. By implementing trusted solutions with which they have the best experience, your MSP is setting you both up for a successful relationship. Requirements typically fall into the categories of hardware, software, and other key technologies for backup and security. Your MSP will want you using business-grade hardware with current vendor support and warranty. Yeah, sorry, but those big box store specials aren't going to cut it in the business world. Not only are the enterprise class devices going to have features and performance beyond those for consumers, but they'll also perform better over a longer period of time. As for network equipment, you definitely want to be using advanced gear to provide the level of security your business requires. From a software perspective, your MSP will have their own set of tools they use to support your environment. This would include their remote monitoring solution, as well as security software like antivirus and threat filtering solutions. Once work commences, your MSP will be installing these applications on your devices as part of their service, included in your agreement. Once in place, this will allow the bulk of the necessary work be done remotely and keep your MSP aware of any changes requiring attention. Backup solutions will also be covered as a part of your agreement. Whether you have physical servers at your location, cloud solutions, or a combination of both, your provider will have a plan in place to recover data should any issues arise. Keep that in mind during the assessment process. I'd be remiss if I said it'd be the first time a new client kept us in the dark about some critical system they were running that no one knew about until some problems arose. So pretty please, sugar on top. Let your provider know when there's a critical piece of technology you need them to support before it's too late. So these are the elements that make up the bulk of the details included in your managed IT services contract. So if you've been following along, we are up to the 7th and next to last installment of a series I call Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Managed IT Services. Now I'm going to go over what's going to be involved during and after finalizing that paperwork. So, one of the first items to consider is your contract term. MSPs will typically offer terms in the 1 to 5 year range. There'll be levels of service you can select and other things related to onboarding, any refreshing of the hardware you have, and just about every detail of supporting and managing your IT infrastructure will be covered. Some companies may want the assurance of a long-term agreement with cost certainty from that provider. Others may want the flexibility of a shorter arrangement. At STG, our contracts are typically 1 year in length and automatically renew at the end of the term unless you tell us otherwise. Should clients need to leave us or somehow modify the agreement, there's clauses that allow for that. These agreements really go both ways and should be a win-win for both the provider and client. You get the benefit of consistent and reliable IT in an era where you really can't be without it, and your provider gets to build a stable practice supported by great customers like you. Now, the next item of note is also fairly straightforward. How do you actually reach out for support when you need it? So now that you've got someone to take the burden of dealing with technology needs off your hands, you've still got to let them know when you need something done. Now, while your MSP has tools in place to let them detect and proactively deal with many issues that arise and perform routine maintenance, there'll still be many times when you'll reach out to your IT provider for support. Typically, you reach out to your MSP via email or phone, and nowadays there are customer portals where you can open a support case as well. Based on the problem, it'll either get solved remotely or a tech will get dispatched to your location to troubleshoot the matter in person. The severity of the problem will often impact just how quick a response you can expect, and that will be highlighted in your contract. Mission critical services affecting a wide number of users or business functions will trigger a near instant response. More routine requests like password lockouts or file permissions will still be handled in a timely manner, just not with the urgency that a major outage requires. Now, additionally, if the matter you're experiencing poses an information security risk, your MSP will treat this matter as a top priority. These days, with cyber attacks being so prominent, you can't take these sorts of threats seriously enough. Oftentimes, you can expect workaround solutions while your MSP gets to the heart of the original problem. But you can rest assured that your issues are being tracked and will be resolved as quickly as possible. Realistically, all these factors come into consideration when determining response. Your MSP will communicate with you on a regular basis to keep you in the loop as to when you can expect a resolution. So, what if you've got a problem that occurs outside of regular business hours? It's not like we can all count on issues to happen between 9 to 5. But your MSP is going to be well equipped with a means for you to submit requests at any hour, even if it's just their standard email support mailbox that'll generate a support case. Many will have a special 24-hour phone number that you can call for truly urgent matters. We like to call the bat phone. As an MSP client, at least for our clients, you're welcome to make after-hours requests on the emergency line if you feel it's necessary. Now, here's where I'll give you a bit of behind-the-curtain look and a word of advice. If it's not a true emergency, I'd really recommend saving it for regular business hours. Sure, you can log a support request, but unless the incident will cause some serious business losses, don't treat it as if it's an emergency. And for a second little tidbit, if you're going to throw tags like urgent, high priority, or ASAP on every request you submit, the tech team will probably go ahead and treat it just like any other support request you submit. Try and use those words a bit more sparingly, and you'll be surprised at just how quickly everything gets handled, particularly when it's an actual emergency. So, if you do feel the need that you have to call in after hours, here are some additional things you should keep in mind. First, make that request via phone call. If it's a true emergency happening off hours, any on-call technician probably isn't monitoring the incoming support requests. Heck, he or she is probably sound asleep, but available if necessary. Number two, keep in mind that 24/7 support isn't included in all support plans. In fact, unless you're on our most comprehensive plans, it's a separate billable item, which would be outlined in your contract. And number three, unless it's an absolute necessity, after-hours support will be performed remotely. This should be fairly obvious, but if something happens out of hours, it'd be best for everyone if the engineer on call and the person making the request don't have to get down to your office to resolve the matter. In the event that it will require a field trip for everyone, your MSP will be there to make it happen. 4, out-of-hours calls are handled on a best effort basis. We do employ a 24/7 call center for these matters, but if something happens at 3 a.m., it may take a moment for the on-call engineer to get ready and respond to this request. In any event, your emergency will be addressed and dealt with in the most expedient manner possible. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide what your contract will include, and that'll determine how you interact with your MSP on all matters, regardless of priority. So, that's going to cover the majority of ways you'll be interacting with your MSP once you've finalized your agreement. Well, friends, we've come to the conclusion of the Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Managed Services series. Now let's go ahead and wrap the series up and get into what to expect in your ongoing relationship with your MSP. So let's face it, IT isn't always the most straightforward of subjects. It's nuanced, and what worked to fulfill a requirement once may not take care of it the next time around. Some may even say this is as much an art form as it is a science. But whatever it is, you as a business owner don't need to spend your time worrying about it. This is on your MSP. You've got a full support team at your disposal. Your IT is handled. The environment is being monitored both for security threats and delivering that day-to-day maintenance that will keep you running optimally. Your team's well staffed, so no more worrying about the IT guy not being around just when you need help the most. IT support is a fixed cost, so barring any major changes, you know what you'll be paying every month. Once you've been onboarded, you know what the bill's going to be, depending on the level of service that you've selected. If you have an in-house IT staff or your MSP is going to be taking care of all your technology needs, you can now rest easy. You've got highly skilled, cost-effective, always available support right there at your fingertips. So while your MSP may not always be there physically with you, you can count on them taking care of you virtually. This added efficiency will often lead to even speedier resolutions than an ever-present staff resource can provide. And in the event a physical presence is required, count on your MSP being there right when you need them. Your tech provider will be focused on delivering those best-in-class solutions for your business. From leadership on down, an MSP will have a wide range of competencies in the technical areas that will serve you best. This sort of mutually beneficial relationship ensures that you'll gain numerous efficiencies by leveraging the technologies the provider will help innovate and implement. Not to mention, round-the-clock eyes on your infrastructure and support when you need it. A signed agreement with an MSP is the first step in the process. So if you're looking for more information, book an appointment or leave me your feedback in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I can't wait to catch you on the next one.